So much good focus time yesterday. Speaking of time blocking,
Oh, are you doing it? Yeah.
I like rounded myself. I have like 10 new meetings on my calendar. Super excited. I just jammed through open scouting like
Oh, did you do the
like a
QS stuff that we're talking about?
lawnmower. I did because there are a lot of in that category.
In that
And
category
I was
we're
like, you
working
know
on.
what?
Yeah.
Let me just
Go in
get in
myself.
here and make it
Nice.
faster.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. This is
Let's just share the load, share the
efficiency.
load.
When everybody buys in to be more efficient, it's kind of magical, I have to say.
It feels good too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it feels good.
if you are the type of, and you, I'm sure, bias for the type of employee who's like energized by productivity.
Yes.
And
I
it's
think
just
that everybody
feels great.
self-selects who works for me, that they're into the productivity thing. So
Yeah.
I just, we had a good talk about this on yesterday's show, and everybody can be 10% more efficient every month for probably 3 or 4 months in a row if you just dedicate yourself to that. Now, I'm sure there are some diminishing returns at some point. Maybe you become a perfectly optimized person. But
well, I think you probably like you decompress a little, right? You take a little bit, like, and then you come back.
yeah,
and
you
go
can't
hard
always
again.
be leveling up your mile speed or something, right? There's
Yeah.
diminishing returns at some point. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was a
Then
good. Yeah,
you shake it up. Actually, a management technique is then you shake people's jobs up a little bit. Sort of like you can't work the same muscle forever. You got to mix up your routine.
Yes, that is. Like somebody takes a new sport, they will be better at the other sport, right? So
yeah,
you're a tennis player, you start skiing or you play basketball, your tennis game improves because you're like, oh, I learned some technique here, or my neuroplasticity in my brain put together something, and it does. That cross-disciplinary stuff does work, and working the other muscles, right?
Yeah.
My skiing got better when I started doing yoga stuff. So I started doing some yoga moves, in the morning before skiing.
Yep.
Yeah, and just stretching stuff out, and it really definitely helped the skiing. And then just walking on the treadmill has helped everything. So I did another walk this morning. So that's, I basically said, let me see if in June, how many days in June I can walk in the morning. 2 for 2.
I love your milestone-based approach to everything. I'm going to ski this many days. I'm going to walk this many days on the treadmill. Yeah. But it's
like looking in a mirror.
Goal setting. No, totally.
Hey, Molly.
Oh, hi. I too am motivated. Which actually, as you were talking, I was like, oh crap, I'm doing that plank challenge and I haven't done my plank yet today.
All right, let's go. I'm going.
Let's go. 35 seconds.
Are you really doing a plank challenge?
Yeah. A friend of mine from Marketplace texted 2 of us who have left. She's still there and was like, I miss you guys. You want to do a 30-day plank challenge? By June 30th, we'll be at 2 minutes and 55 seconds. And we were like, yes. So we do our plank.
I want to get in on that. Do you videotape it, or what do you do?
No, we just, we notify the group chat, and then we follow it up with a update about our lives, because we haven't caught up in a while. I know, it's actually really nice.
People. Hey, fun. Molly, you do anything tonight?
Apparently. Yeah. Yeah. Turns out.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. We'll talk about it on the show. Let's, we're going to do our, hey, everybody. I got sick tickets to tonight's game. So Molly's going to sit in, I think, probably the best seat she's ever sat in for a basketball game. And it just happens to be the finals, game 1. So the life of Molly Wood. Slightly better than Marketplace.
Just boot up sequence, Jason. But can you just give me the seconds number on yours?
Yeah, we are at 3 minutes and 35 seconds of just banter, just pure banter.
Just pure banter. Just always quit. New rule, everybody. Always quit public radio for venture capital. New rule.
I mean, basically, I'm just going to be. Now my move is to troll the top journalists in the world with you. I'm just like, oh, look who's at the Warriors game.
Hi.
Wait till I get a picture of you on a private jet to send to the next recruit.
Just yeah, that's who I am now.
Life.
This is the life
we're trying to live. The life we're trying to live. Let's go. Secure the bag.
Let's go.
As I say, we had two team members reach 7 and 8 years here at launch, Ashley and Jackie. And I said, oh my God, they got their bag. I'm going to buy them a bag. So I bought them beautiful. My wife picked them out because she's got great taste, but I had this idea of buying them a nice bag. So I bought them a nice bag. And then I gave a toast in Miami for their 7th and 8th year.
There was a lot of crying.
It was emotional. But shout out to Ashley and Jackie, who are just my rocks. They really have helped me build this business. And I said, congratulations on securing the bag. And then I literally handed them 2 designer handbags that are really, people don't know, they're laptop bags specifically. So those are women's bags that look great. You know,
they look great. Those
when
are
you're
laptop
sashaying. Well, you're sashaying through the airport like a girl boss, like we talked about yesterday.
Exactly.
And the New York Times is following you, taking pictures, writing your downfall story.
Writing your downfall.
And you're like, what? Boom, you open up your lady bag, you reach in, and you girl boss out your iPad Pro or your M1, and you just, boom, you write a blog post. Boom, you get in Slack.
Done.
You just drop it.
It was a really lovely moment. Like, lovely moment.
Well, I mean, and also it was women mentoring each other. This is a great moment with Jackie and Ashley. And Ashley was younger in her career, and Jackie's Harvard, graduate degree, a couple of Emmys, four. By couple, like I mean four, like many. Much. Yeah. And she said, you were the first person who gave me permission to have an opinion at a job. You told me to have an opinion. So it was like, it wasn't even about me as like the boss. It was about peer mentoring. And I was like, that was even more meaningful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the first time I started crying.
I got a little verklempt as well. I'm a crier. We're both criers. We're criers. Like if the Warriors
criers
listen,
and planners crying. We'll be crying.
Exactly. That would be crying. But I think the Warriors are going to do great tonight. I'm really excited for the game.
I'm excited too. And I also am excited to see that. I think the Celtics are really a team of the future, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them.
This is no joke.
Yeah.
Okay, Boomer. So, you know what we'll do is we're going to, hey, everybody, just give you a sequence of events. We got a sick guest today, and then we're going to talk about Sheryl Sandberg leaving Facebook and a couple of other news stories. But we need to get Okay Boomer out of the way. And we have an Okay Boomer. So, Rachel, you want to come on and we'll just do our handoff here. 3. Are you recording, Rachel?
I am at 5
From your
minutes.
parents' basements?
From my high school bedroom. I am back. My sister's graduating, and they actually changed her graduation.
Are you literally back?
Oh yeah, baby.
I was a joke, but I kind of got the vibe that you're back.
We're back.
Your hometown.
I'm back in Maryland.
I need to know the poster game. You can save that for offline.
Oh my God, we're going to see a poster of Pearl Jam.
It is cat posters.
It's cat posters.
It is not good.
Oh my God, I didn't realize you were a cat lady.
This is so perfect for Okay Boomer. Like, it couldn't be better for Okay Boomer.
Rachel is a cat lady. Who knew? All right, here we go. 3.
I didn't see that coming.
2. All right, everybody. It's time for your favorite segment of the week, along with all our favorite segments. But this one is truly carved a niche for itself. It's Okay Boomer, where Rachel Braun of Rachel Reporting meets with a millennial, a Gen Z, hopefully. And we get some insight as, well, we're Gen Xers, but okay, call us boomers. Rachel, who's on top for this week? Tell Molly and I.
I got to speak to the Skillbank founder and CEO, Mehek Vora. You actually already spoke to her on episode 1202 as a part of Office Hours on This Week in Startups, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about her background and her thoughts on being a young founder.
Yeah, and tell us about Skillbank. I'm actually really, really into this idea of upskilling and skill matching. And this is like upskilling to a specific type of job, right?
It's really awesome. So what got me really interested in Skillbank was I did one of those Google certificates in college to skill up. And the biggest problem I had is I thought it was really difficult to hold myself accountable. So it definitely did take me longer than if I did it with like a cohort. And Skillbank is kind of like a boot camp, but for marketing. So we see a bunch of coding boot camps, but this one really helps people get jobs at ad agencies and things like that. So basically Skillbank's a platform. It helps people get jobs in marketing by skilling them up to land these jobs. And it doesn't focus mainly on startups. It does focus mainly on those like agency roles, which are pretty well paying after college. So I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah. If you go and you go to, and we're investors in Skillbank, they went through our accelerator, and she is a force of nature as a founder. Also a DJ, I saw on her socials.
Yeah.
A little DJing, which is always interesting. Who's attracted to DJing.
She's so sick. She's actually also, I found out, after I met her at the All In Summit, I found out after she's my friend's roommate. And I was like, what the heck? I know. World. I was like, wait a minute. I was getting dinner with a friend. Brooke was like, and we did talk about this on the show, but she was with 2 other founders. And they call their little like founder house the Federal Reserve, and the nickname is the Fed. And I thought that was really cool. So we did talk about what it was like living with other founders as well out in LA.
What a great idea to motivate each other. And if this happened in LA, Laurel Canyon, which is a really groovy area that I lived in for a little time, where Jackson Browne and other musicians lived. I think George Harrison, and even to this day, modern musicians live there. Jenny Lewis, I think Moby, a bunch of other folks had lived there. And there's a documentary about it. And so there is something about being around your cohort, making each other better. That's why accelerators work. You mentioned it yourself in terms of being in a cohort. So, marketing, I just want to make a note for anybody listening here who wants to break into startups or, have a great salary and doesn't know where to begin and doesn't like coding. My Lord, marketing is really easy to learn. It's hard to perfect and be good at it, but it's very easy. The entree into being a marketing manager is very easy. I think maybe 3, 4, 5 months of just doing basic marketing and you'll find an entry-level job. And man, if you get good at it and you can become a growth manager, like a growth hacker, you can be invaluable. So highly recommend checking out Skillbank and this amazing OK Boomer. Let's listen to the interview with Mehak.
Thanks, guys.
Well done again. Another great
Roll
selection.
the tape. She's so cool too. She judged on the Founder. I did some judging on Founder U, and she was one of the judges that day. And it was so cool. So cool.
Yeah. Mehak is awesome. All right. So we have our first guest for all of the noties watching. Thank you for 100 of you showing up. Give us a thumbs up. Let's break that algorithm. You're going to really love this guest because it has to do with gambling, placing bets. So it's good for me. Where is the show note?
I just dropped it in Twist taping.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I didn't see it on my list there, but okay, here we go. Tarek Mansour.
Tarek Mansour.
Tarek Mansour.
Yeah.
Tarek Mansour. Okay.
I think we got it, but all right. Yeah, want me to just bring him on, or do you want to start the intro? I think I missed the timing yesterday, so.
Yeah, it's always good when you do a little. So okay, let me see. What are these notes up top here?
That's kind of like an intro, just some basic facts.
That's an intro. Okay. So when you write the intros, make it like an intro. Today on the program, this is just random notes. I can freestyle, but
it's going to be on the back of the news today.
So generally how we do it is we say, hey, next up on the program, and Molly and I go back and forth on a couple of facts. So maybe you do the thing where you have JC, MW, just pick whoever whoever introed the person last time, the other person. So
I'll do that.
I did the intro for OK Boomer, Molly can do this one, just go back and forth with it, but they can give us the cues, right? And maybe in an intro, it's like, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we're ready to go.
Okay.
Right, 3, 2. Hey, Molly, you know what I love to do?
Oh, yes, I do.
Gamble.
The man loves to gamble.
I love it. It's my chosen profession, angel investing, and now it's yours. Place bets. Yeah. Try to make the best decision you can and reap the reward. And, it's some people will call it wagering. Some people call it gambling. Some people call it investing. And one of the really interesting concepts in poker is people do prop bets, proposition bets. I bet you can't hit a 3-pointer. Okay, what odds will you give me? Okay, just a cold 3-pointer. We put the basketball in your hands. You don't get to warm up. You just shoot the 3. Okay, that's okay. So that's the proposition. It's a prop bet, right? And prop bets are a lot of fun. Like I've seen crazy prop bets. There was a prop bet that in the next 10 days, you bicycle from Los Angeles, this poker game in Los Angeles, to Vegas, and you have 24 hours to do it. And you have to do it in the next 10 days, and it's 10 grand. And so people make these crazy bets. And sometimes people have done the research on them. Sometimes they're setting somebody up. Somebody's a ringer, right? Yeah. Other times, it's just interesting to make a bet on who's going to win the Democratic primary. Now, if a lot of people do this, the prop bet can turn into a prediction market because you'll be at the table and somebody will say, well, the average NBA player hits 30 to 40% of their 3-pointers, but they're in a game and there's defense, but they're also super qualified. I think you have a 15% chance of hitting this. I'll lay 7-1 odds. So you put up 1,000, I'll put up 7,000. If you miss, you give me 1,000. If you hit it, I give you 7,000. So you lay odds, right? And laying odds and doing that just makes you really crisp, right? It makes your thinking clear because you're putting skin in the game. I love this concept as a way of looking at the world. That's how I look at the world. What are the chances if I invest in this company? It's going to pay off at some ratio. But the thing that I love is prediction markets. And prediction markets, there were a bunch of them 10, 20 years ago. InTrade was one. they're fraught with a lot of legal issues. But apparently people are starting to work them out. And I don't know if you've ever seen, like, you'll have 538 put the odds on a presidential election,
Right.
or who's going to win the NBA finals at the start of the year or the start of the playoffs. And then, a prediction market might have it slightly different. So you're like, well, who do I go with? There were a lot of people who thought Trump was going to win in the prediction markets, but maybe some other people, who were professionally predicting didn't think he would, right? As a perfect example. So there can be deltas between a prediction market and what experts say, and then what you think. And this is just a great way to triangulate. So if I forced you to bet on something, you'd really be more thoughtful. So today we have one of these new markets emerged, and I was like, well, let's have this conversation because I think it's an important one. So maybe you could queue up who's our guest today.
Yeah, this is super interesting, and I am very excited to have a conversation about probabilistic thinking in the context of all of that. And then also, oh my God, you can do this. It's legal. Tarek Mansour is the founder and CEO of this new company called Kalshi. Welcome, which lets you bet on what are called event contracts. It's the first betting market that we know of, betting market company, to be fully regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. On the show, that's the legal part. And you're betting on swaps whose payout is dictated by the outcome of events. So exactly what you were saying. One current example on the site is, will the average new COVID-19 cases in the United States be greater than 200,000 by September 22nd, 2022, which we know will be if we keep having conferences. Kalshi CEO and
super
co-founder,
spreaders, as we like to call them.
super spreaders, as we like to call them. CEO and co-founder Tarek Mansour of Kalshi. Welcome to the show. Did I say that right, Kalshi?
That was great. That was great. Thanks for having me, Jason and Molly. Very excited to be here.
So thanks for coming.
Tell us why. What does your prediction market do? How does it work? And how do you make money as the company that provides this service? So how does it work? And then how do you make money? The classic entrepreneurial questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the way we've thought about it, the way we always describe it is we're building something like the New York Stock Exchange for events, for a new asset class, right? The same way that you buy stocks where the underlying is a company, you buy futures where the underlying are tangible things like oil and metals. We're like, how about we take things that have economic value, like COVID or economics, or the outcome of political or geopolitical events, and create a market where people can get exposure to that, right? And the way to structure that is actually quite simple. It looks like a prediction market. It is a prediction market. And what we do is we structure these swaps that essentially pay out $1 if an outcome happens and $0 if not. And so you can buy these swaps, buy or sell them at any price between 0 and 1. And that price that you're entering the trade at is the probability, right? If you're buying 40 cents of the dollar, you believe that there's a 40% chance that the outcome is going to happen. And if you want, let's say you buy, well, Brexit happened by the end of the year, you buy at 40 cents, you can wait till you see if the outcome happens, or you can exit your position like you do with any options or swaps trading before maturity. Let's say the price moves to 70, you can exit at 70 and you make your 30 cent on the dollar profit. So yeah, that's the sort of fundamentals. Kalshi, I mean, as you said, Jason and Molly, there's been a lot of trials for this idea of like, how do you get exposure to event? And if you're interested, I can talk about the origin story. And the thing that has been kind of difficult for this space is regulation. And Kalshi has spent 3 years in our first fully regulated exchange at a federal level.
How do you make money?
How do we make money? So that's a great question. So we take transaction fees, very simple sort of exchange business model, the same way that CME or New York Stock Exchange take fees, essentially. No.
What are those fees? If I were to bet $10,000 in this, bet about the COVID number of cases of 200,000 by a certain date. So I bet that 10,000 and I win. And I guess somebody on the other side bet and lost. You have to balance out those two sides, I'm assuming. So how much do you make and how much do I make? So if I won the bet and it was 50-50, I would theoretically get back 10,000, right? If it was even odds.
Correct.
So if this was trading at 50 cents, am I correct? And that's even odds. So yes. I bet 10, I would theoretically get 10, but I'm sure there's a VIG in here. Yep. That's how you make money. So what is the VIG, the vigorish, the take?
Yes, absolutely. So the average fee, it depends on the price at which you're entering at. If you're entering at 50 versus 10, it's different prices, but the average fee across all prices is 1%. It tends to average a little bit less because actually things are not usually at 50-50. And so, yeah, you would take you made 10,000, you pay $100 out of that to the exchange. Now, the thing that's very important here is that you are trading against other people, like other traders, other funds, the same way, like it's a central limited order book. So you actually go and tell the exchange, I want to buy, let's say, $10,000 or 10,000 contracts at 50 cents. That's what I'm willing to pay. The same way that you do for a share of Apple. And then someone else might be willing to sell at 50 cents, and then there's a transaction.
Got it. But I can't just put a market order in where I say, I'll just bet 10,000 at 50, but just fill 10,000. You don't do that, right?
No, you could do a market order. It's a great question. And it will get filled at whatever price is basically available.
Got it. So if you're absolutely certain that this COVID thing's going to spread, you're David Friedberg, you're the Sultan of Science, you've got a theory, and you're like, listen, I know this is happening. I'll just keep betting till the cows come home. Or you just have great conviction. You could buy at 50 and then 45 and 40 and fill the order like that. But you need to have people on the other side. Got it. What happens if you don't get enough people on each side? Because then that can screw you up, right? If you don't have enough action on both sides, what if everybody just wants to bet the Warriors, or everybody wants to bet COVID's coming back with a fury, and 200,000 was it was a bad bet, and it just boom, nobody wants to take the other side. What happens?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you mentioned probabilistic thinking, and that's why I love your Twitter, Jason. I mean, it's people that think probabilistically, which tends to be traders. I mean, that's how we started a company. It's traders. If a lot of people believe COVID is not going to, or is going to happen, everybody is on the same side, the price is going to move from 50 to 90, 95, 99%. Yeah. And those people are okay buying the 99% outcome because they consider them to be bonds. You're getting 5, 3, 4% yield over the next few weeks. That is relatively, you can call it risk-free. In 99% of the cases, you're going to get that yield. But the interesting part is that, and this is kind of the common idiom in prediction markets and traders, is like, 1% is not 0%. 100% is not 99%. There are traders, for example, back in June, that have bought a yes on 1% on whether we're going to get another COVID wave that is actually even worse than 2020. Those traders 100x. Wow. Yeah, it's basically people buying tail risks and people that know how to evaluate these tail risks.
Can it go to a decimal? So could it be 99.9 and be 1,000?
We're working on that. It's funny. The limitation right now is the banking system. The banking system doesn't have centi-cents. So that's something we're working on, but we're getting there.
God, I really want to start a band called Centi-Cents. Tell me what made you want to do this? I'm looking at your background. You were at MIT, you were at Palantir, you were a quantitative trader at Citadel. Like, is this for you because you're super passionate about this type of trading and you think it's really fascinating, like Jason? Or were you also just like, people are going to do this like crazy because they cannot help themselves and it will rain money at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give you the origin story. So I think definitely a markets fanatic. I mean, I love markets. I just love the concept of, everything has a price. And, when I was trading at Goldman and other places, we always used to play this game called Make a Market. So it's like what is the probability around, I don't know, Kim and Trump are going to get out of North Korea with a deal. And then we'd make markets and then buy a certain odds and then trade sort of with each other. But the more interesting thing that happened is, so when I was at Goldman in 2016 in that summer, I was working on this exotics desk. It was this equity exotics desk. And all the flow, I'm talking 90% of the flow was about get us exposure to Brexit or allow us to hedge exposure to Brexit. That was institutions. That was a very legitimate flow. We're talking billions of dollars. And what we would do is we bundle these kind of weird swaps and options and put them on one bundle, sell it to them as a good proxy, but not actually what they were looking for. And it was very expensive. Sometimes it was like 40% premiums. I was like, okay, what if they just trade directly on the event? I mean, that's what they want to do anyways. Why are they doing it indirectly? Then I worked at Citadel, and that's also some of the things that we were doing. So taking exposure like macro trades, but doing it via swaps or options indirectly. And so the more we thought about it, the more we're like, I mean, this makes perfect sense. Just getting exposure to specific events. And, the more we looked into it, the more we realized, okay, actually this doesn't exist because of the regulatory piece. And we're naive enough at the time to essentially go through the regulatory piece. And that was great. I mean, that was, in retrospect, that was a phenomenal sort of process.
Because previously, just to clarify, previously, this has only existed as sort of Las Vegas line betting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there were, I would say a few kind of, as Jason mentioned, a few unregulated that tried and then, got shut down by regulators because, this is not like Uber. This is financial instruments. People get hurt if it's not done well. And, maybe a few crypto trials and things like that, but nothing in a kind of fully regulated, properly vetted way at a scale of a proper exchange. So, yes.
So how do you pick which bets go on the site? Excuse me. How do you pick which bets go on the site? And then I guess the follow-up is, can a customer place a bet up there, like a prop bet. You know, I've been talking to people on the show, and we've made bets about VTOLs, vertical takeoff and landing. When will a consumer be able to buy a ride from Manhattan to JFK or LaGuardia or Newark? Let's say you pick those three major New York roads. When will somebody be able to pay for a ticket and in the same day take a VTOL, ride, from Manhattan to a major New York airport? Like, that's like an incredible bet to make, right? And we just pick a year.
Yeah.
And then
I love this one. I think maybe we should put it on the, I actually, I'm sure the markets team is listening. So I think they will have them sort of put it up. So yes, customers can suggest markets. And I mean, the way we have a whole process, regulatory process, we need to vet sort of all these markets. And the way to think about them is they are markets, right? They get a ticker, right? Apple has a ticker and it's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's the same thing here. It gets a ticker, it's reported, all of that. And then people are essentially trading on this market. Now, the mix is like, we look at what are the top risks today that people are worried about, the things that are on the news, what are people thinking about? And then two is we essentially follow whatever like members are asking for. And actually, this is actually very well within the types of markets that we love putting up in the exchange, because there's people that want to speculate and express their views on that market, but there might be also people that want to hedge or insure themselves about this taking longer than expected or these types of things.
So in that way, if I have some risk in my business, I don't know, I produce a certain crop, or I need oil for my business because I run a private jet company, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I could make a hedge here. I could bet the opposite of what I'm experiencing in my day job, in my business, as a hedge to try to, hey, if oil prices go up, it screws my business. So I'm going to bet, I guess in that case, that oil prices would go up and make money from that.
Exactly.
That would then, if I lost money in my day business, would make up for that loss. I mean, it's a very sophisticated thing to do, I think, and crazy, but people are already doing this kind of stuff with commodities, I believe. Like if you had some problem in your business, I think actually do airlines actually do this? Do they buy these kind of things? Because I know they can buy credits. They could buy oil in advance and make a contract with somebody to buy oil at a set price for the next 5 years or 3 years, and they give the money in advance, I guess. Yeah. And people agree on a set price. But are people doing that kind of stuff? And what's a great example of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk through a few. So I mean, I think one, absolutely, airlines do this. That's one of the biggest. That they are one of the most natural use case for oil futures, and that's how the oil future market really developed to that scale. Grain farmers do this with grain futures. The thing with these, and totally agree with you. People are doing this. It is not predominant. It's not something that normal individuals and small businesses are used to. But normal individuals and small businesses are more used to insurance, which actually our type of markets are a little bit more structured like insurance, because it's like kind of an event that could happen that could hurt you. And if that event hurts you, now you have a position that can sort of offset that hurt, that risk to your bottom line that you get. So one of the things that our traders are doing on the platform right now, we have this market up, is about student loan forbearance. People have a ton of student loan exposure, and they have a lot of exposure on whether the White House is going to sort of extend those student loans or not, right? And so on average, the average sort of US student right out of school, they have like $30,000 of debt in student loans. So what they can do is, like, if they actually have to repay that, they put on a position on Kalshi, and if they end up getting hit by that $10,000 to $30,000 by a certain decision by the White House, they get compensated by that trade on Kalshi, essentially. That is a perfect type of hedge that some of our traders are doing currently on the platform. There's a lot of things around the economy, like whether the Fed's going to raise interest rates. You can imagine how many people are exposed to these types of things. Other things around tax bills. You could hedge some of your tax exposure down the line, and a variety of other things. So
let me think that through. If I bet that taxes were going to raise in California, and I thought if it did raise, my exposure would be $10,000. And if I could find a trade on there and I bet, hey, I bet that it's going to raise by whatever $10,000. And I win that bet. I win $10,000, and I pay $10,000 more in tax. So it kind of cancels out because I was able to make that bet.
Exactly. So you're essentially buying insurance. You're saying, like, I'm going to pay whatever market price is to enter this contract. So I will pay today like $1,000 to get 10,000 shares of the income tax hike. It's actually currently on our exchange. Right? And now, if the government does actually increase taxes in such a way that your exposure now you have to pay 10,000 extra in taxes, that is fully offset by the payoff from the market, your 10,000 shares.
And then to dig a little deeper, I could potentially, if I'm the airline or the person who's going to get hit by the tax thing, you're saying as a consumer of this product, I can suggest this bet if it doesn't already exist on your platform. What happens after that? Like it sounds, I mean, I can't just list it directly. It's not a GoFundMe situation. So what is the vetting that occurs after Jason is like, ooh, I'm a little worried about this tax thing. You know, what would be a cool thing to bet on is this.
Yes, that's absolutely a great question. So I think there's two pieces. There's one, is this market going to be liquid enough and build enough volume, right? If it's something that's very esoteric for one person, it's usually very difficult to list it on the exchange because they won't build liquidity. There needs to be some, and that's also the things that matter to us, is risks that are pretty predominant and prevalent for a variety of people and businesses. And so that's one thing that we evaluate. If it is prevalent and predominant, okay, we can list it, we can build liquidity for it and build volume for it. Then it goes through regulatory process where we vet a variety of different things. And this is very, very crucial part of the process because one, we need to make sure it's not readily, what we call from a regulatory standpoint, readily susceptible to manipulation, right? This is a financial instrument, right? And the same way that stocks, you have a lot of safeguards around against insider trading and a lot of other things. We have safeguards around insider trading here, making sure it's not manipulable, making sure that someone cannot just control the outcome and make money off of it. And so that's a lot of analysis we do on the data. So what is the data source? What are we going to use? Is it a government reputable agency? Is it a private source? Do we have the right licensing agreements and right restrictions on how they use that data or how they input it? And then it goes to other things like making sure it has economic utility, can be used for hedging. And you guys mentioned, right? Like this is, one of the main things about our contracts is they are not betting or gambling or anything like that. And because historically the line and how it's been defined is, financial instruments, sure, people speculate. People speculate on stocks, people speculate on grain futures, and that's an important part of markets. But at the end of the day, you need these financial instruments because they have economic utility. Right?
Can we just check one thing?
Yeah.
Can you make sure your notifications are off? Because we heard those notifications come in before. If you're on a Mac, it's in the top right. You just hit your control center and say, do not disturb mode.
Yeah.
And then number 2, are you recording on QuickTime? Just to check.
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. Great. So I guess in this example of like a VTOL taking a vertical and takeoff landing, human flight from JFK to JFK from, or to LaGuardia probably would be more apt from, Manhattan, you would want to make sure that somebody didn't buy a VTOL, sneak it onto a pier, land, have their friend give them $100 and take them there to win the bet, right? That would be a perfect example of market manipulation. And you would have to say a major company like Uber or Joby does a flight, and you could actually make the bet tight. So there's some rigor here in constructing the bet or the wager or, prediction here. Is that how you solve it? Like for that?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, there's a variety of kind of use cases, and it also depends on the different types of markets. But a lot of it is really checking what the data source and like what we call the source agency, the body that basically determines that outcome, and making sure they have integrity around the process of how that outcome is determined. And oftentimes, if it's not a public agency, because public agencies already have a lot of rules around don't trade on things like, for example, in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you cannot trade ahead of the release of the inflation or jobs number. So those are really safe to use. Because there's a lot of restrictions on that. But if it's a private, we actually have data licensing agreements where we enter into agreements where they have to prohibit their employees from trading, for example, anyone that's around the data source from trading. Same thing as kind of the rules that you have around insider trading. And that's really important to make sure that there's market integrity.
So in that example, if you were going to do Joby or Uber's VTOL program, you'd want Uber and Joby to agree that their employees aren't going to place these bets because they have an impact on it. And so in my case, if we did a weight bet, hey, Jay Cal's going to weigh more or less than he does on this date, a year from now, can he keep the weight off? And everybody wants to bet on that, which would be hilarious. I wouldn't be able to bet on it as the person who would be determining the outcome, but everybody around me could, and they could send me donuts, every day.
Absolutely. That's correct. Yeah.
But don't do it. Yeah.
What's your burden of enforcement, and to what extent does this slow down, the number? It's interesting because like in some ways you're a volume business. You presumably want to list a lot of contracts and have a lot of volume and liquidity, but it sounds like because you're adhering to regulations that allow your business to exist, it might slow you down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it as a very positive, very, very positive forcing function to actually build volume in the long term, not maybe necessarily short term, but in the long term. Because if you see if you pop out a lot of markets and there's like a lot of issues in these different markets and things like that, what happens, like people might trade them, but they start trading them in very little amounts. So the example that actually Jason mentioned, it's a very interesting, fun potential trade, but at the same time, people won't put very legitimate and serious money there. You know, people are not going to do a $10,000 trade on that, because the first thing that's going to come to mind is, you know, Jason can just determine that outcome single-handedly, and that's risky. So in some ways, actually, the markets that tend to be the most successful are the ones that truly are safe from manipulation, insider trading, and a variety of other things. And so that it actually pushes us towards the right balance of like how many markets we push, build proper volume in them, and get them to sort of get to escape velocity, because they are safe and, you know, safeguarded against a lot of the fraud. On the question of burden, the exchange has a big burden of enforcement, essentially. You know, so you see in the New York Stock Exchange all the time, like Goldman Sachs trader charged for insider trading. We have the same thing. We have our surveillance systems we've built in-house over 3 years, vetted by the regulator. They check all sorts of weird patterns. They match with KYC. You have a whole investigative team, and then those get referred. It could be a fine all the way to criminal prosecution, actually.
Well, and we just saw that, right? That people think like the DOJ and like the SEC are going to let people play games in crypto. And here we go, you know, somebody at, you know, as I predicted, give myself credit for that prediction. The person at OpenSea who was front running the market, the DOJ was like, yeah, that's a crime. And they're like, but it's crypto. It doesn't, not a stock. And the DOJ was like, yeah, we don't care. No. We catch people when they commit crime.
Do bad stuff.
Yeah. Right. So I guess everybody's wondering, in crypto Web3 land, like, why isn't this on the blockchain? Why aren't you doing this? I guess it's because you don't want to go to jail. Like, you want to do it legitimately.
Look, I think my view is, you know, I mean, there's a lot of interesting parts for it. I just don't see any meaningful, today at least, any meaningful benefit, other than if you wanted to skirt regulation, which is very much not in line with our ethos. And it's a little bit what you said. I mean, look, crypto can be great. The thing is, like, any financial instrument could be a weapon of mass destruction if done poorly. You know, there's a lot of scams in crypto and financial industry more broadly. And you saw what happened with Luna. We are very big believers in regulation if you want to build a business that's sort of built to withstand the test of time, that, you know, is going to be around for decades, not for a year, and then, you know, you get in trouble and people get hurt.
Have made prediction markets and gambling markets in crypto. I've been pitched on a number of them. Have any of them reached any reasonable traction? And are people doing prop bets on them, 1-to-1 bets, whatever? And what do you think of that space? What would you tell your friend if they were going to participate in those, in terms of protecting themselves from manipulation, from scams?
Yeah, there's a lot of actually crypto-based, you know, I think there's a few that pop up a week now, and it's like Kalshi on crypto or other types of things. I mean, I think it's kind of pretty consistent. It's like, this is a financial instrument. It's a swap. It's a future, an option, however you want to call it, a financial derivative, essentially. And history has shown that when these things are done and without the oversight of a regulator, without proper safeguards and for customer protection, market integrity, people end up getting hurt. And we're seeing this in crypto right now. It is always, and the reason is because people love making money, right? And if you give someone the ability to make money with full control, they start building scams and Ponzi's and all these different things. And so I'm actually pretty excited about the crypto space getting regulated. I think it's going to actually allow Bitcoin and crypto to achieve its full potential in a regulated and safe way. So that's what I would say. I think, you know, the regulated alternative is always probably better.
If people can cheat, there's a number of people who will try and cheat.
They're going to cheat. Well, and you talked about the CFTC approval ensuring that kind of long-term success, right? And the volume that you will need to be successful. It also gave the stamp of approval that led Sequoia to invest in you. Like, there are a lot of signals, right, that regulation consent. Is that true, that Sequoia only made its investment after you got that regulatory approval?
That is correct. I mean, I think we had talked to Alfred Lin from Sequoia at the time. He actually had done a PhD around similar things to prediction markets way back when he was going to go through it. So it's a market that has always fascinated him, and he's seen kind of over the years the unregulated piece of it. I remember he just, it was very simple. It was like one text, like regulation. It's like that. This is financial markets regulation, and we were already working on the regulatory piece because from day one that's what we wanted to do. And I told him, okay, we'll come back to you when we get that. So that was definitely pretty much a very, very large piece of the investment.
Yeah, and how many people are participating in the largest market, you know, that you have right now, or the largest, you know, trade? What's the scale of this right now? Is it hundreds of people, thousands of people? Is it millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars? What's the scale of the business today?
Yeah, skills. Yeah, so I think some of our largest markets. So we're really focusing on what we call, like, I would say, like traders today, options traders and day traders, people that are used to kind of the idea of trading and that understand it. Kalshi is a little bit sophisticated if kind of someone who has never traded before. Even though we're doing a lot of learning and education to get there. So those traders, I mean, they trade quite a bit. They're pretty serious about and professional about their trading. And so oftentimes some of our biggest market, we're talking thousands of traders. We have millions of dollars traded in some of our biggest markets. Our markets, obviously like happen on like sometimes daily and weekly basis. So there's like kind of this refresh. But you have things like economics, like Feds. So far, it's been trading like millions of contracts. We had some of
you post the volume, right?
Yeah, we post volume and transaction numbers. Yeah. So today, Fed interest rates is there. COVID wave, you can see inflation. These are some of the markets that are kind of featured for today.
Tell us about your raise history, because we touched on that briefly, but there have been big bets made on your success, right? Your Series A was $30 million at $1.2 billion post?
No,
120 million. Sorry, math. So many numbers. I'm like, that can't be right. $120 million post. What is the big long-term bet here? Is it just that everybody's going to want to do this? And by everybody, I mean, I assume institutions, right?
Yes. I think the way, yes to everything, volume, institutions. I mean, the long-term vision is we want to build an exchange, a platform where that sort of dominates this asset class of events. The same way that CME has dominated interest rate swaps and general types of commodities. ICE is very big on energy futures. We want to sort of dominate events. And the way that we see it is events are very relatable, more relatable than a lot of the other asset classes that are traded everywhere. People understand politics, COVID, economics, things that are around them. And two, they impose a lot of risk to the system. It's very real, right? And when Brexit happened, a ton of people got hurt and they didn't know how to sort of insure themselves or hedge themselves. Same thing with COVID. And so the idea is like, we basically get to a point where institutions and businesses are using this in their kind of normal financial planning on a yearly basis. Same thing with individuals, where they're like, okay, I'm going to hedge my volatility, my exposure to the future. I'm going to make my future more certain by reducing my volatility with respect to all these events. And so this is sort of the big vision. The second thing that comes out of the vision, and Jason, you mentioned this, something that I particularly love. I feel like prediction markets or these types of markets are attacks on bullshit. The one I mentioned this on Bloomberg last time, which is the idea that like a lot of people just say all sorts of stuff, polls and all these different things. But when you have money on the line, when you're actually trading on your belief, the market tends to be more truthful. Like pricing is truth. You don't lie when you're putting money on the line. And
I wonder, to sort of follow up on that, we had a conversation recently where we were, where I was ranting, as I often do, about the fact that we run so much of our policy on what economists say.
Yes.
And economists are wrong all the time. With almost no accountability for that. It's like, wow, they don't even read or collate their own reports. And so I wonder, like, do you see a world where, ironically, like crypto, this is the type of tool that could decentralize economic information and pricing signals in a much more accurate and reliable way?
100%. I mean, we're already seeing that world unfold. So one piece of data, we have forecasted the inflation numbers more correctly than Bloomberg Economist Survey, which is the state of the art, 7 out of the last 8 times. And we are already seeing.
Well, and when you say the Kalshi. Market of people placing bets.
I'm bad at forecasting. I will never read the market. I don't know. I have no idea, but I trust the markets. So the markets forecast, the probability has been more accurate in 7 out of the last 8 times. And we're already starting to pick up in press and TV. We're asking us and asking some of our people on the team to come and just show the market forecasts, because people are starting to trust them. And that's very, very exciting to me, because, and one thing that you pointed, for example, with economists, the way they make their predictions, there's this kind of herd mentality thing where they all kind of group the same predictions, because, if they're right, they're right. But if they're wrong, no one wants to be wrong alone. So they kind of tend to always converge towards the wrong prediction. Whereas again, if you tell them, put your money on where your mouth is, put your money on the line, things are going to be very different.
It's really interesting to look when you have a prediction market for the Fed interest rates or for inflation, there is a time and then there's also an amount. So if you were to look at the Fed interest rate, and you say, hey, the Fed interest rate at the June 2022 meeting will be greater than 1%, 99% say yes. Then you drop down to 1.25 and you get to 95% say yes. So, okay, that's where things start to break. But then you get to greater than 1.5, Molly, and it's like 6% say yes, that's going to happen. You go to inflation, not as an abrupt because it's not as predictable, right? And so you look at something like, hey, the inflation rate being greater than, I guess this is the increase in inflation being greater than 0.4% in May. Is that what I'm reading here? So that would be the
Correct.
increase from the previous month or from the previous mark, right?
Yes. Yes.
So whatever the beat
Correct.
was in April, if you say, hey, greater than 0.4% more than that, it's 91 cents. Now you drop down to 0.6 and all of a sudden it drops down to 80 cents. And
Correct.
so you kind of can like triangulate, and going up 0.8%, I guess, month over month here, it's down to 33 cents. So you really start to get a sense of like what people think. Like inflation is going to be increasing. And it looks like on the order of the consensus is 0.5, 0.6%.
Correct. Yes.
So it's really interesting when you start thinking about this for a discussion, Molly, like as a starting point to your point, like who are you going to trust? People placing the bet with skin in the game, or economists whose job it is ultimately to appease the person who gave them their job.
Yeah.
Like to stay employed, and this is the problem. Like what is the motivation of the people at the Fed, right? Is it to keep their job? Is it to be independent critical thinkers? Like if their net worth was based on the bet, they'd be making a different bet.
Yeah.
And what they did in 2010 and what they're doing now, it doesn't seem to match, to your point, Molly, like maybe the best decision-making process.
Well, and it looks like you are drawing conclusions here too, right? You've got now a Fed interest rates forecast powered by Kalshi.
Yes.
Like, tell me about how you're doing some of those data insights and how is that a product in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the idea, what we did with this, and we're actually launching a new inflation dashboard as well, is like, people have Bloomberg that gives the Bloomberg economic surveys, and that's $29,000 a year. We're like, how about we just make this public and let everyone see what the market is forecasting in real time? And the other really important thing is if you see there's a scroll bar, we let people see how the forecast has evolved over time. So if you kind of take it from today till this is how the people's expectation have moved based on what the Fed is saying over time about where we're going to land, right? And this tells you how, how the economy has evolved, right? And
this is a revolution, Tarek.
Yeah.
This is a revolution, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Economists.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really interesting. If you move the slider, like you're saying, you can see, if you go back a couple of days, or if you go back into November, December, I guess, is that? If I were to move the slider.
No, this is March 1. So if you go back all the way back with the slider.
Got it. So this is March.
Yes.
And this is predicting going forward into November, December of 2022.
Correct.
So from the month of March, in the beginning of the month, people thought November, December would be at 1%.
Yes.
Then they think now 2.75. So over March, people, I guess, are believing what the Fed is saying.
Yes, it was a time when exactly, because at the time, the language was still very dovish and inflation is transitory and the problem is Russia, and now the language has changed, and you can see how we could have avoided this. This could have been a lot smoother than what it looks like right now.
For those of you who are listening to this, if you use Spotify for video or YouTube, you can watch the video, or if you search on your podcast player for This Week in Startups video, you can download the video version. We have a video RSS feed, so that's available to you, youtube.com/thisweekin. But there's a slider on this, prediction of the Fed funds rate. It's really powerful. Yeah, it's really powerful to see the consensus change over time.
We're doing the same for inflation and a variety of other things. We might do some things around like, the belief around how bad the recession is going to be. Is it going to be recession, stagflation? Is it going to be depression? And see how kind of market is going to evolve and that perception is going to evolve over time. A variety of these different things. And I think this is very important because it's the first time we're going, at least myself, from a professional standpoint, it's the first time I'm going through kind of a proper bubble eruption and a potential crisis. And it'd be interesting to see how the public sentiment evolve throughout these crises and have a kind of on the record, public record and audit of how that sort of evolved over time.
Here's a crazy bet Molly found. Tell them about this bet you found.
I'm definitely all in on the interest in inflation and the recession conversation. But what I really think is amazing is that apparently 87% of buyers do not think that we are going to land anybody on the moon before 2025. What is this?
NASA's been late. They've been sort of missing a lot of deadlines consecutively, and this is what's so interesting because on the news it's like, oh, we're doing great and government is launching, but NASA's been missing most of their deadlines, and traders were not going to put money without research. They do their research. They know what's going on. They look at the state of our technology, everything, and right now they're pricing at 10%.
I mean, exactly what you're saying. That's like this points to a larger question, right? Like it's super fun to ask whether we are going to send someone to the moon. But the real question here is, what is NASA doing? Where is that money going? What does it say about the state of American innovation? What does it say about privatized space flight? Like if you infer from this that you should buy SpaceX, you've had a really contextual, complicated conversation based on a pretty funny headline.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. Love it.
I think I'm buying. I'm buying no. Yeah, I would pay 10-1 that they don't get there. I mean, that's basically the odds right now, right? You're paying 10-1 or whatever that they don't get there.
To Molly's point, I mean, one thing I would say is the interesting part of markets at the end of the day, even for stocks market, is the kind of this idea of price dissemination or price spacing, right? Like you're getting a lot of different traders to go and research and bring information out. They figure out how to do it. They model it. They do their own research, and then they bring it all into a market. And it's all getting aggregated into one single price that beautifully and elegantly sort of aggregates all this kind of valuable information that we're drawing out of the world. And I find that really, really exciting.
I love that you can bet on the New York City high temperature in June, on June 2nd, or TSA check-ins. That's a great one.
Forecasted better than meteorologists, which is also cool.
I will say, as a climate investor, I'm also very interested in all of the stuff you have in there about temperature and rain.
I would like to make a bet on China invading Taiwan. If you think about what economic insanity that would cause, if China took action against Taiwan, our portfolios, everybody's retirement, the economy would go down 50% or something. Like if you could actually define, I don't know how you define a war with Taiwan, but military action, who would be your source? Who's your oracle? I think is what in smart contracts, they call it an oracle in Web3. Who's the oracle that China invades Taiwan? The New York Times, Congress saying it's an act of war. The president might say it. How would you define that one?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if we were to do it, it would be something around the government, the U.S. government. But there's a big but. So this is one of the things with regulatory. There's a few things that we do not touch. War, violence, terrorism, assassination. And then we also do not touch, and this is funny, we can get back to it, onion futures. Because onion futures is the only vegetable where you cannot trade derivatives on. It's illegal in the U.S. And I can tell you that story. But so anything around
violence
we cannot
death.
do because that can incentivize
violence and death.
Xi Jinping could place a bet and then just be like, you know what? I'm going to make a shit ton of money when I invade Taiwan.
We would not like that to happen. So those types of things we avoid.
That seems like a good rule, but can we go back to the onions?
Onions, yes.
Yeah, I can't let that one.
I know. I'm like, cool. Onions, though.
So in the previous century,
let's chop it up on onions.
Yeah. So onions, only vegetable you cannot trade derivatives. It's actually in Dodd-Frank. It's illegal to trade derivatives on onions. And the reason is because in last century, two brothers actually cornered the onion market. So what they did is, like, a lot of people put on short sells, and what they did is they short squeezed it. They bought all the onion supply in the market and got a lot of people to go bankrupt. And at the time, I think the solution was like, it's a problem that is endemic to onions, instead of the conclusion being it's a problem that's endemic to human beings. Human beings are just
So they buy all the onion farms, they corner the market on it, or buy all the onion supply, and then they crash the price of onions.
They actually jacked up the price. So there's a lot of shorts. People that were short, they needed to rebuy the onions at some point to basically satisfy their shorts.
Got it.
Yeah. And then they controlled the full supply. So they were like,
onions are expensive.
It is beautiful to me. It is so human nature to then are you guys familiar with the Simpsons episode where an asteroid is coming for Earth and they sort of barely escape destruction by the asteroid? And they're like, let's make sure that never happens again. Let's burn the observatory. Like we're just going to make a one-off law about onions and that'll fix human nature. Like, what the hell?
I mean, it is.
Oh, that's delightful.
What I like about what you're doing, I think as we get ready to wrap here is, human nature, is to try to get an edge, right? So if you're a farmer, you want an edge to produce more per acre. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a podcaster, you want an edge to get better guests. Everybody's looking for an edge, right? We're performance-driven creatures. We're competitive. That is innate in what we do. That is why capitalism, as an operating system tied to democracy, two forms of competition, has resulted in the greatest country in the history of humanity, the United States. That's why we keep winning. I hate to get all MAGA here. No triggering anybody, but listen, there's a reason why we win so big here. And it's because competition, we accept the reality of competition. Now, if you allow people to be competitive in an unregulated market, it's going to result in cheating.
Correct.
It's going to result in a lot of problems because humans can't stop themselves. Most humans cannot stop themselves, or some percentage of humans can't stop themselves, depending on how cynical you are or how much you believe in people's better angels. People are going to try to get an edge. And I've seen it at the poker table. I've seen people, I had this discussion with a bunch of poker players. They said, if somebody keeps exposing their cards at the poker table, in other words, they're looking at their two cards, their whole cards, and you can see it. I always tell people, protect your cards. I can see your cards. And if I'm in a hand, I don't want to play that hand. I will ask the dealer, if it's a home game, I saw his cards. Can we just muck everybody's cards? There's been no action yet, right? Or I'm out of the hand, but if I've seen their cards and I have much better cards, what are you supposed to do there? It's like an ethical issue. I would rather just tell the person. And somebody said to me, the right thing to do is, and I disagree with this, but I understand where they're coming is, you tell them one time. If they don't protect the cards after that, it's on them.
Yes.
Yeah. And I understand that. I disagree with that. I'm going to tell them every time. I can still see your cards. I can still see your cards. But some people are like, listen, if that's the edge they want to give me, I'm taking it. And there was a case of Phil Ivey, considered one of the top poker players. He had found a deck of cards, specific deck of cards that had been cut a certain way so that if you were to look at the cards, you could look at the edge. It's called edge sorting. And he found this edge where he went to casinos to play Baccarat, I think it was. And he said, I want an Asian dealer. I want to have this type of room, this temperature. And he gave them a bunch of conditions. These conditions were done to obscurify what he was actually doing. And then he said, I want the cards placed, and then I want them turned twice. Because gamblers are suspicious. And when you're a big gambler, you can say whatever you want when you go to the table. I want a dealer who's this height. I want this music playing, and they will do whatever you want. So he gets this all set up, and he hits a London and an Atlantic City casino for $10 million each or something to that effect. And it turned out he had found an edge in the cards that told him the probability of a face card. It gave him a super edge. He won. And so then they sued. He didn't go to jail, but they didn't have to pay, I think was the outcome. And this was a huge question mark. And because it was the casinos losing, people said he was well within his right to find that edge and to exploit it. And I said, no, it's unethical. He should be ashamed of himself for doing that. I don't care who it is, like a casino or an individual. You shouldn't. That's not the right edge. But the people were doing this also with roulette. There was a whole roulette scandal, and I think it was the 70s or 80s. Somebody had gone and recorded every roulette spin before they had the digital things. They just recorded everyone in their memory. They would, then write in a book, and they found out for whatever reason the alignment was off on a series of wheels in Monte Carlo, somewhere in Europe, and they exploited that, and they took down the house for millions of dollars, and it took them a long time to figure that out. So, anyway.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sorry, Siri. I know you want to know this story.
I'll
talk to you about this. Sorry, I'll talk to you later, Siri.
But yes, clearly the man loves gambling. Yeah. But Tarek, this is so interesting.
So great. Great stories. I don't know.
Can't wait to disrupt all of economics with you. Let's go.
And no assassinations, please. What is there anything else that's a no-no? You said assassinations, wars. We are betting. Would you bet on debts from COVID? I think that's fair game.
Well, we have stayed away from it, generally speaking. It's COVID is kind of a little bit of a different, you cannot actually manipulate COVID. That would not work. And if you did actually try to spread COVID, that would be significantly, it would be obvious. It'd be, it's a kind of a different thing.
It's a pretty serious crime.
Yeah, it's a little bit like grain futures. You could theoretically manipulate grain futures by burning a bunch of farms. But
yes.
Right. That's a lot. So I think that those are some of the kind of thresholds that we look at. Just to kind of wrap up to your point, I think the whole point, and this is what excites me, we are believers in kind of information. Like the thing I love about Kalshi is like you can gain an edge by gaining information. We see some of our traders kind of finding correlations between traffic lights and kind of like things around the economy and how much, density is. Just like crazy things that are being brought in. I find that very beautiful. And I think the very important thing, as you mentioned, is like there needs to be a set of rules, ground rules of how this marketplace is going to function. Otherwise, it ends up being all cheating. And that's what I love about CFC, the SEC. They've done a great job over the years at figuring out what the rules of the derivatives and securities markets need to be to make the game fair, to make it fair and reasonable, and for everyone to be able to participate on equal grounds. So yeah, we're very excited. We're working very hard to make this a reality.
Wow. And elections, I guess you're going to do that for sure, right?
We can't comment on specific markets in the future.
Okay.
But we're essentially speaking, working on.
I mean, you're doing Biden's approval rating, right? So
yes,
that's starting soon.
Yeah. It's already there. Biden approval is on the. We do it on a weekly basis, and people do a great job on forecasting the approval, and it's been great to see kind of how it's evolved over time as well.
Amazing.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So
Kalshi.com, KALSHI.com. Tarek, Mansour, thanks so much for the time. This is
Tarek, thanks for coming.
fascinating.
Very
Please
cool.
come back.
Yeah.
Yes, would love that.
Maybe during the election cycle, who knows? If you had an election prediction market, maybe you'd be
if there were any
if
reason
it did exist, I don't know.
To come back, then it could be really interesting timing.
I do this all the time, Molly. It's so obvious to me the product roadmaps that I spoil.
He can't help it. He
I
can't
can't help it. All right, listen, great job. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.
Take good care. Thanks.
All right, so just upload that file for us. That'd be great.
Yep. I think Justin will drop the link for you.
Justin will.
Yep, drop the link in the private chat, and I'll email it to you as well. Thank you, Tarek.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to be reading all of the 101s.
And now, everybody's favorite time of the week.
And now,
Hey!
Oh, here we go. All right, so we're gonna do 3 episodes of Obi,
Yay!
2 episodes of Star Trek because I'm only 2.
There's actually 5 by now, but
I know. I'm so far behind.
We'll just do the first 2.
We'll let everybody catch up because
although, in my opinion, 5, the most recent Star Trek it got real good.
Yes.
Oh, really?
A lot of heft, a lot of emotional heft now.
The last week's, which was where they were in that emergency, and it was almost like a submarine kind of movie thing,
yes.
and then this one where it was like a little more kind of zany, like a bunch of different kind of almost comic setups this week. The one that debuted just last night.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. I'm only up to 4, I guess, the scary one.
Right. Yes, 4 is the scary one,
and that one's good.
I've really been enjoying it.
It's really good. Okay, well now we're just doing the show.
We'll do the show.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2. Hey, everybody, it's Thursday. That means this week in streaming, the unofficial new show / segment with our pal Lon Harris. How you doing, Lon?
I'm pretty good. I feel like it's very official at this point. It's official in my heart. In my heart, it's official.
I mean, we have to make another stream and just call it this week in streaming.
Exactly.
I guess we got to start with Obi-Wan.
Let's start with Obi-Wan.
We're 3 episodes in.
Wearing my Star Wars shirt.
Oh my Lord!
Nice.
Where do I begin? I think I am absolutely loving it. I am thrilled. There are things I could criticize, but for fuck's sake, the 3rd episode, and this is going to be super spoiler. So if you haven't seen Obi-Wan,
oh yeah,
just fast forward 15 minutes. But this is we're here to talk about spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most sadistic, insane Darth Vader that we have seen to date. Period. Full stop. It is absolutely this last episode. Whatever problems people have with the first 2 episodes, I think you have to look at Darth Vader walking down a street, randomly cracking children's necks, dragging Obi-Wan through burning fire and saying, like, your pain is just starting. Like, I'm going to torture you forever.
Yeah.
And you didn't think Darth Vader could be more terrifying. And I think this is the most terrifying I've ever felt about Darth Vader. Lon, Molly, am I crazy or just reliving my youth?
I think what's
going on here?
Rogue One, if you'll recall that movie, they had that one scene that fans really took to that was like a horror movie where it's like there's the few rebel soldiers and they're stuck in that little corridor, and then Darth Vader comes in and it's just like Jason Voorhees. He's just like murdering them, taking them out. And everybody loved that scene so much. Obviously, that was in their minds when they're Vader in the show, but I think this even does take it up to the next level. And they really, we've only, we went back to the prequels, which was this, here's Anakin Skywalker before he became Darth Vader. And then, Return of the Jedi is this sort of redemptive story. So we've only really ever had a little pocket of time when Darth Vader was really like at his peak level of evil. And it's fun. Yeah, it's fun that they're getting to like live in that world where it's just like he's the ultimate supervillain.
And also, 3 little words, people. James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my freaking God, it's actually Darth Vader. Like, it's so, as fan service, it's phenomenal. And yeah, like we've only encountered Darth Vader like after he's already hella scary.
Yeah.
Slightly on the decline, right? There are like
he's old man. He's an old man.
He's an old man, and there are hints that there's this kind of rebellion against his kind of like Jedi, but they're just like whatever old witch Jedi, man, and then he's redeemed. And this is just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He is beyond.
I also love that.
Evil.
Yeah, they talk a little bit about Star Wars is kind of like it's like a poem. It rhymes. Like you take stuff from the old stuff and then work it into the new stuff. And the lightsaber battle really feels like those original trilogy Darth versus Luke, where it's because it's character development while they're having the battle, and also I felt like they did a little bit in the performance where he's kind of toying with Obi-Wan. Like it's almost like Empire Strikes Back battle where he knows he could easily kill Luke if he wanted to.
He's playing with his food.
And he's toying with him and letting him kind of get a little bit ahead and then striking back. And it's delightful. I thought it was
delightful. And he doesn't, when Darth Vader's like, oh, Obi-Wan's escaping, it's like, there's some things like logically you have to think through because you have to talk about the fight scene because the first 2 episodes, you're like, okay, where are the lightsabers? Like are we going to have 6 episodes of no lightsabers? Because this is Star Wars. This is Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. And so I thought this was coming in episode 6. So brilliant on the story.
Thought they would kick this to the end. Yeah.
We thought this would be the buildup, right? We're going to have 5 episodes where he doesn't turn on the lightsaber. And then on the 6th one, he's magically the greatest Jedi again, and Ewan McGregor puts up a good fight. Nope. Episode 3.
Gets his ass kicked.
He gets his ass handed to him. You have not been practicing. You're out of touch. You've got PTSD, clearly. And I am now going to torture you the way I was tortured. And that's when you're like, wow, he's on Mustafar, the planet.
Yeah.
Looking out, I kind of had this thing. I'm like, why is he on Mustafar? And it's like, oh yeah, this is where his pain and suffering happened. Being a Sith is about pain and suffering.
Exactly. It's
the
about
most
embracing
pain and
your
suffering.
hate.
Yes. When he says turning to the dark side, embrace your hate. The Emperor always is, egging people on to just lean in to our other story that will be coming up today. You want to lean into that dark side. And my Lord, he leaned in. He's like, yes, I got burned alive and lost a limb. And now I'm going to drag you through fire so you can feel what it's like to have your flesh melt off of your body.
Yeah.
My God. But here's the thing. It makes no logical sense that because he extinguishes the fire, right?
That he allows Obi-Wan to
and he allows Obi-Wan to go. It's like, wait, you just lifted Obi-Wan in the air. You just dragged him fire. Why don't you just lift Obi-Wan's body back to you and take him to torture him some more? So it's like, well, there's some logic problem here, but I'm going to forgive it because it's clear he wants to extend this torturous relationship and make Obi-Wan suffer until he's in a bacta tank with one of 4 limbs. I mean, this is where this sadistic, insane, this is, a level of sadism that you didn't even know Darth Vader have. Like, what have we seen Darth Vader do? Cut off Luke's hand, force choke people.
Right.
Okay. And he's really arguably not even the one who he didn't have the idea to blow up Alderaan. Like, yes, they developed the Death Star and whatever, but he's not the guy who gives the order to destroy Alderaan. That's
Tarkin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and so
the guy who blows up Alderaan.
So a lot of crime is sort of laid on Darth Vader in the background and in the buildup to the movies that we have seen. But this is like, oh yeah, no, he is horrible.
Okay. So we got Darth Vader. Amazing.
That was thrilling.
Peak Darth Vader for me. was not what I expected. I kept my expectations super low on this because Boba Fett didn't hit a lot of notes. Mandalorian hit all the notes. So now they're sending me on this roller coaster. I'm like, it's not like Marvel where like, I don't know what the run of Marvel was, but I can't remember like the Marvel movie I was disappointed in during that super stretch. And here I was like, Boba Fett, I really wanted to root for it. We talked about it here. But it was like a 7 of 10 for me where Mandalorian was 10. This thing's a 12 for me now. Like this is just blown away my
that
expectations.
episode really hit for me. And I was, and I'll be curious to know what I'm loving everything about little Leia setup.
Okay, well, that was my next question. Yeah, let's go Leia.
Like, and yet, like old guy and annoying kid, romp and adventure is like not my favorite genre. So I wasn't sure about 1 and 2. I was like, I'm here for it because it's very satisfying to build up this understanding of why Leia would go to Obi-Wan, right? Like the building of the relationship and learning a little more about Leia and how she's force sensitive. Like that's all very exciting, but also like a 10-year-old kid is annoying. I think we can all agree.
Well, the running through the woods and not getting captured in that episode, it's like, come on, guys.
There's a lot of kind of goofy looking action in all the Star Wars things.
I was like, come on.
All the fight scenes are so weirdly slow in those first 2 episodes. Like it's almost like a slow-mo, like like you can sort of see.
I think that's
all right. So tell me what you think of Leia.
I really like the Leia thing. I thought I really liked how they leaned in very purposefully on making us think that this was going to be about Obi-Wan and Luke. Like they even announced, here's the young actor playing Luke before the show, and they released those early photos of here's him watching Luke. And then that was a nice, fake out that it's actually him and young Leia that we didn't really, we thought of her. She's with the Organas on Alderaan. She's fine. You wouldn't have thought of that. So I thought that was a clever thing to do. I love this young actress. She's precocious. She's a young girl. It could be a little chirpy and annoying. I get that. But I do feel like this is a very realistic depiction of what Princess Leia's character would have been like as a 10-year-old girl. She would have been very bossy.
Nailed it.
She would have been
she's just like her.
Yeah, a lot of attitude. Like she's
verbal.
playing young Carrie Fisher perfectly.
Perfectly. She looks like her. The outfits are totally reminiscent. The hair is perfect. Like I should be clear. I'm saying I'm happy that the series is evolved. I did not want 6 episodes of them running through planets and having adventures. Right.
And
so
I mean, that was also, if you'll recall, this was originally going to be a movie. The original Obi-Wan concept was pitched as a 2-hour film. And then they were like, no, forget that. We're going to do it as a Disney Plus show. But then Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who do Mandalorian and Ahsoka, Boba Fett, all the other Disney Plus Star Wars shows, they said this is too similar to Mandalorian. You have to mix it up. So, and I think you could still tell. They rewrote it. They made it less like Mandalorian, but it is still functionally, it's that Shane, Lone Wolf and Cub, Logan. Totally. I mean, we've seen this story a whole bunch of times.
Protect the child.
The seasoned old warrior comes out of retirement to protect the young child and reconnects with his humanity, blah, 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 blah.
Right. The problem here isn't with the Obi-Wan story. It's that Mandalorian stole that. This is the Obi-Wan story.
He goes to Tatooine. Natural.
Yes, because he went to Tatooine to look over one of the twins, and Bail Organa is supposed to take care of the other, right? That's his name, Bail Organa?
Bail Organa, that's Jimmy Smith,
Jimmy Smith, who's great.
What a delight to see him.
So fun to see him back. And who else? It does make sense. If something did happen to Leia, well, who else would Bail Organa go to? There's really not that many Jedi. Well,
you got Yoda, who's really old.
On Dagobah at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't be more satisfying. Like, I want to be clear. So I'm sort of saying, like, I'm happy that it's already evolving in an even more satisfying way already as of episode 3. Like, they're
also so good at filling in. They're so good at filling in these supporting roles with like fun people who you want to see pop up. Like Mandalorian 2, you had Amy Sedaris in like a role.
So great.
Brian Posehn. And this one, I've really enjoyed, Kumail Nanjiani getting
amazing as the fake Jedi.
Oh. Yeah.
Flea
as the bounty hunter in the first one. Did you guys catch the guy with the snout in this most recent one was Zach Braff?
Incredible. Yeah, he was funny. And the fact that like he's palling around with stormtroopers and stormtroopers are like grunt workers who are like punching a clock.
I felt like they're giving
that was like a very nice, like, okay, we get to
They feel like, they make them
I felt like they were like cop, like they gave them like police dialogue in this episode.
It was like cops.
It was like cops, like, where we got to go now? These guys don't know what
get some
doing.
donuts. Another day.
Exactly.
It's just like they're going through their routine,
right?
And
of course they're hassling civilians, of course, and
they are.
Breck's like friendly MAGA. Who doesn't like a little order?
Yeah.
That was pretty. That was pretty MAGA moment.
A little light tyranny.
Yeah,
little light tyranny. Who doesn't like a little order? That's a nice pull. Yeah,
right.
We're gonna explore this also in Andor, which is the other.
Oh my god! Did you see the trailer for Andor yet, Molly?
Yeah.
No.
Oh my god! It is next level. It's like no other Star Wars world you've seen. It's
the prequel to Rogue One, where we're going to follow Diego Luna's character before the events of Rogue One. So it's the formation of the Rebel Alliance, basically.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love everything about this. I mean, honestly, and I'm happy to see that Obi-Wan Kenobi is in fact the most watched Disney Plus original. It shows that like commitment to the original characters in some ways, possibly way too much, as we have seen from the fandom.
No.
But that was just a throwaway line because we want to acknowledge it. But it just is like it's perfect. Like it really is for those of us who grew up with this. It's perfect.
We have to talk about, I think, the sequels and the fact that Star Wars fans, some number of them, are horrible and don't like Black Star Wars characters to the point at which the Star Wars Twitter handle has to remind people to not be racist pieces of garbage. What is happening, Lon? Like I
we have one in our chat right now.
Yeah, I just saw a comment pop up.
Oh no!
You're gonna want to go now because it's gonna get worse for you, friends.
It's gonna get super woke in here right now.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I don't want to be woke. I don't want to be.
I don't.
There's like woke on this side and there's racist on this side. Like, it's a sci-fi movie. Can we be normal, everybody?
I think we make a mistake sometimes where we refer to this idea of the Star Wars fandom or the Star Wars community as if it's like a community that you could put a dome over and say we're talking about hundreds of millions, maybe billions of people.
It's everybody.
Everybody loves Star Wars. I mean, listen, it's not everybody. There are some people who don't care about Star Wars.
Most people.
It's a lot of people.
It created the blockbuster concept along with Jaws, correct?
Yes, and there are very
few crossover.
There are very few other IPs that you can't even really talk about the community in any rational way because it's just too many people. So of course, any group that's that big is going to contain awful people and mean people and racists and aggressive whatever. I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of Star Wars. I think it's a reflection of how many people around the world love Star Wars.
It's a law of big numbers.
When you're talking about numbers that big, you're going to have a cross section of the fandom that is,
Moses Ingram is an African American woman playing the third. Is it the third sister?
Third sister.
Yes, third sister.
Third sister is the name of Reva.
They're all hierarchical. There's the Grand Inquisitor, and then they're all named like fourth brother, fifth brother, like where they are in the lineup.
They're not Sith. Sith operate alone. And they operate as some sort of group of monks that do bidding and they're hunting the Jedi.
My understanding, this is covered in the Clone Wars cartoons, which I'm not as good with.
And Rebels too.
Rebels as well. My understanding is that some of them were Jedi who were converted, and that others are just Force-sensitive people that the Empire taps to like.
And Moses is clearly, and this third sister is in all likelihood the Padawan we saw escaping from the Jedi Temple.
I think that's a smart guess.
In that first episode.
Everybody's talking about this theory. So again, we're going to talk about theories, but that's pretty obvious. And that maybe Obi-Wan or Anakin, she's got some animus towards them, or both of them. Who knows where this is going to wind up by episode 6, but she's kind of an interesting, annoying, abrasive character to everybody. She's on her own mission here. She is pissing off the Grand Inquisitor, in fact, stabbing him with a lightsaber. Yeah. And she's pissing off the brother because she wants credit for stuff. And
fifth brother, I believe, is the guy with the hat.
She's
she is hands off, starring in her own revenge movie, and no one else is invited. Yeah,
exactly. So
I thought this was a fun.
I don't love her character, but I think I don't love her character because you're not supposed to love her character because she's a jerk. And Yeah, she's mean. She's like taking people's arms off.
But I think that's what I like about it. Star Wars has so many like deliciously evil villains. Your Count Dooku's, where it's like or Grand Moff Tarkin, but they love being evil, and it's a point of pride with them, and they're vainglorious about
Darth
it.
Maul comes to mind.
Exactly, it's theatrically evil, and I like that she's not that. She's just like a jerk. Like she's just like if you worked with somebody you didn't like, and they were like
like an
third
annoying
sister
a-hole.
again. We got to go through this now. Like she's just obnoxious and awful and like a bully, not like like a Darth Sidious type figure.
There's something, and there is something clearly deeper to her, right? Like very likely she was that Padawan. Very likely, because didn't Obi-Wan tell the rest of the Jedi not to go in? Like I think she probably is like, I'm after him personally because he abandoned us to this death and horror.
Yes, that would make sense.
In that third
around she's got ambition that we don't fully understand, and like Darth Vader assumes it's to become Grand Inquisitor, but
he
I
would know.
Maybe not.
He's pretty
exactly.
good at
And there's some message.
Some level below that.
Did you see in that third episode? So they're in that kind of hidey hole where Obi-Wan sees a message from another Jedi who had gone to the dark side and then had turned back
Quinlan
to
Voss.
the light.
Yeah,
Thank you. But she sees something in there too. That
she saw the Rebel logo.
It's a Jedi logo.
It's a Jedi logo.
Okay. I believe it's a Jedi insignia. It could be a Rebel. I think it's too early for there to be a universal Rebel insignia at this point.
I thought it was the Rebel insignia.
I thought it was a Jedi thing because she
Probably
definitely
I
reacted
think it's like
to
from the
that.
Jedi
It definitely
temple.
triggered her.
It definitely triggered her, and I think it was more than just I hate the Jedi, right? Like it was more than that. She's not. I will say that sort of separate from all the horrific racist hate that she's experienced online, I don't find her to be the most expressive actor. Like,
I mean, I do think that's
I want a little more there. And so then when I saw her see that,
are very, steely.
Yeah. I know.
It's hard, I mean, it's hard to talk about her performance because we don't want to egg on.
It is exactly because there's been so
pieces
much
of garbage.
Hate,
but
right.
And then this, of course, triggers the discussion of the sequels.
According to Screen Rant, to close the loop on that, the symbol is none other than the crest of the Jedi Order.
Got it. Okay, so she's super triggered.
Thanks.
I mean, is she going to try to kill Darth Vader? You think she's going to try to kill Darth Vader?
I mean, I think
she wants to get close to him.
Yes, there is definitely a level on which she is using this Obi-Wan thing to rise in the ranks because she has some kind of an ulterior motive. Now,
double agent.
Maybe it's right. Maybe it's that she wants to kill, because that would make sense if she was there when Order 66
all her friends
happened,
were murdered.
She blames Darth Vader for ruining her life.
Anakin killed everybody.
Yeah. It could be, but you'd have to think, is there? I don't know. It seems like a lot of work to get in the same room with him when she was already third sister.
She was like right there.
They clearly do not have access to him.
No,
so,
well, we know we've established that he's holed up on Mustafar in that.
He's
castle.
like Putin right now. He's at that table, and everybody else is like way at the end of the table.
But that's an interesting part of this. This is why I think my theory that she wants to kill Darth Vader. She wants to be his number two. And then what if episode 6 is her having a battle with Darth Vader? That would be a killer lightsaber scene. I mean, I think Darth Vader is going to cut her in half, but based on what we've seen,
she can't win because Darth Vader's got to be around.
Yes,
and so
movies. Her and Darth Vader chopping her up and throwing her in lava, for shits and giggles when she becomes like the Grand Inquisitor, could be super interesting to me at least. That would be quite a character arc. Maybe she kills all the Inquisitors. Maybe who knows who else she kills? But if she's on her own tip. I think you said it well, Molly. She's on her own revenge. But that leads us to the sequels. Episodes 7, 8, and 9, where people did complain, oh, it's too woke or whatever. I just want to say, because that does relate, because the person who played Finn also received a bunch of hate.
John Boyega and Kelly Marie Tran, who plays
Kelly
Rose
Marie
Tico.
Tran got it much worse, right?
Yeah,
we're always like...
Yeah, and I think the issue is that with Rise of Skywalker, they sort of caved. They got all this racist pushback to Finn's character, to Rose Tico, and rather than push through it and say, but this is the story now, like it or lump it, they pulled back. Kelly Marie Tran's barely in Rise of Skywalker at all. They were clearly setting up that Finn was going to become a Jedi, and then they don't do that. They give him this sort of other story, and it's sort of, they're trying to play it both ways. They're trying to sort of coddle the racists and be like, don't stop watching the movies. But at the same time, we're going to post tweets and have Ewan McGregor go on Twitter like, don't be so racist, you racist. And it's like, you could just tell the stories you want to tell and ignore them. And that's probably what they should do.
Well, and it's all convoluted, right? Because you want to have valid criticism you want to do valid criticism here, right? As we're giving hot takes for this. Mm-hmm. But you also have to recognize that there's this weird thing going on where, they're introducing wokeness or whatever, maybe on the margins, trying to make the cast more diverse. That's fine with me. It's a different world.
Let's not call it wokeness.
Whatever term you want. They want to make it more diverse.
We're having inclusive casting that's representative of the fucking world.
I think everybody wants, right?
Right.
Oh, and all the alien species.
They could go one step further, and that's probably what they should do, because it would communicate to the people who are still pushing back against this. It's over. You lose. It's over.
You know, like the war's over. You lost.
Right. Like, what if Finn became a Jedi, and then the movie ended with him and Rey being together? Why wouldn't we do that? It feels like we don't do that because we know it would make these people.
But there was another thing. Well, I think there was another thing happened concurrently. They decided to kill all the characters we love and not tell their stories. And it's like, I showed up for the sequels.
They tried to reboot Star Wars,
which was not what they should have done with the sequels. Mm-hmm. They should retcon those, throw them in the garbage.
I love Last Jedi. I think Last Jedi is great. Force Awakens,
they make it all
pretty good,
where they tell the story of Luke and Leia running the Jedi Academy and Leia becoming a Jedi. That's what I thought I was in for.
I mean, they were going to Rise of Skywalker, in fairness to J.J. Abrams, and rare that you're going to hear me say that, but here we go. In fairness to J.J. Abrams.
Write this down for all time.
They did want to do more of that. The plan for Rise of Skywalker was to have Carrie Fisher. The idea was Han Solo was the big character we follow in Force Awakens. Luke Skywalker was the big character from the classic trilogy we follow in Last Jedi. And then Rise of Skywalker is supposed to be the General Leia movie, but she passed away. We lost Carrie Fisher. So they had to rejigger the movie and change their plans to
it just was so poorly
they
done.
had. And it is a real shame, because I think everybody would have wanted to see that.
I think so too. And then it just ended up being this unbelievably horrible double whammy where they were like, okay, we'll go in this different direction. We'll reboot this. We'll restart fresh, right? Like,
who is right? Yeah.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just wipe the past.
Yeah.
Start new. Everybody's a Slayer now.
It doesn't work. And
somehow
Palpatine returns.
Palpatine returns is terrible. And who is Rey? Exactly. I still don't have clarity. Is Rey supposed to be
I really liked Rian Johnson's thing in Last Jedi, that her family isn't important. She's not from anywhere.
She's just a Force sensitive.
She just happened to be this person who was very Force sensitive, who came at the right moment in time and became important.
It's just random.
Right. And I like that. I think Star Wars needs a little more of that. It's very much historical king's line of whatever. And it's a little bit of a weird thing at this point. It would be nice if there were a few people who just came out of obscurity and became very powerful. And I hate that they retconned that. I really wish they had not. I agree.
Right.
The ending becomes incredibly muddled because they retconned that. It's
pretty clear.
And then they chickened out, right? They chickened out and lost that. It was like, if you're all in on this story, then go in. But then they chickened out. They left these actors out to dry.
Oh,
John Boyega and
poor Kelly Richard barely gets to be in it at all. She's got one scene where she's like, I'm going to stay here. You guys go have an adventure. And then she's not in the movie.
They hang them out to dry and don't acknowledge that at least part of the reason that they did that was racist backlash, right? They're just like, oh, people didn't like the story. And then now they're like, oh, it's a bad situation for the actors.
It's a lack of leadership
for Disney, and it's a lack of leadership. Exactly.
It was a lack of leadership. They did, this is the thing. George Lucas was an auteur with a vision. And then they gave this to J.J. Abrams. They kind of begged him to do it, and then you had Rian Johnson, and then I don't know who did the last one.
J.J. Abrams again. J.J. Abrams came
back again. And it's just I don't know that J.J. Abrams had a vision here,
No, the vision was, oh no, the internet got mad. Let's just do what the internet wants, I think. And that's really
pretty much. And that's always a bad way to tell stories.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Reddit edited the movie, and it's just like, no, you can't do that. And they're trying to even do the Avengers Endgame thing at the end, like every Star Wars ship from every timeline is going to portal in, and it's like, just stop it, just stop.
Yeah, the whole thing was a mess.
Chris Terrio, the same screenwriter as Batman v Superman and Justice League.
Oh, great. keep them away from any other IP, please.
What a filmography.
Yeah.
Please don't touch things anymore.
Do you think that what they're going to do with Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett in this time period this is my theory, and I did talk to Jon Favreau and I did pitch him on this. And I said, like, why don't you just tell the new story of what happened after Return of the Jedi, since you're kind of on that way. And of course, Luke Skywalker showing up. It's kind of like we now have Grogu, who obviously is going to go be a part of Luke's training center. Mm-hmm. I think they have this like almost a path of reconciliation with the fans like me who wanted to see the Carrie Fisher story, want to see it, recast Carrie Fisher, or use the CGI. I felt like the Luke Skywalker stuff is close to the Uncanny Valley for me.
Kathleen Kennedy said they're not going to recast. They felt like the lesson they took from Solo, which was not a hit.
Do well.
Was people don't want to see different actors they don't know as these
I was
characters.
Okay with Solo. I was okay with the new
I disagree with her. I don't love Solo,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's the takeaway. I think you could feel free to recast, but they're not going to do that. I don't think they're going to totally redo the sequel movies, but I think they're going to do exactly what they did with the prequels, which is this is what Dave Filoni, the guy who did the Clone Wars,
he filled in everything. Yes.
This is what he's so good at. He's going to fill in all of the weird gaps and make it a better story with the supplemental materials. And then people will get excited about it because they like the supplemental materials. It's exactly what happened with the prequels. Everybody was down on the prequels, but now everybody loves that same.
Clone Wars is so great. It fills everything in with the Mandalorian War. Yeah,
exactly. And added all these characters people love. Added all of this stuff that helps to sort of buttress the storytelling of the movies where it kind of starts to feel inconsistent or fall apart. Like you can fill in, Obi-Wan had this relationship with Padme, which helps explain why they're closer at the end of Sith. Or, here's what happened to Anakin that kind of gave him this attitude readjustment that he just shows up with suddenly. And I feel like I'm very confident that Filoni is going to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah,
with the later ones. Like as much as I
Should
don't
they do Princess Leia?
It's satisfying,
CGI, like have her daughter play her and then just CGI it a bit and try to get the Uncanny Valley thing going?
I feel like we'll get some beats like this moving forward. I doubt they're totally done with doing that, especially because the fan response was so positive to doing it with Mark Hamill, and they've had success with it. I feel like there's no stopping.
Did it work for
now.
you? Did you get
I
thrown
don't
out
love
of the
it.
film? You're 90%, 80%?
I'm always going to be partial to just recast. Just find a guy like, to me, Sebastian Stan, who plays Winter Soldier in the MCU. If you put him in the right wig, he looks remarkably like Mark Hamill.
Yes.
To me, I would just like put him in there. He's Luke Skywalker now. It looks like it works for me. I felt the same way about Rogue One, where they did Peter Cushing. They like cartooned him to be Tarkin in that one.
Yeah.
Right.
What about Charles Dance from Game of Thrones? Tywin Lannister is the perfect Grand Moff Tarkin.
Just like him.
I would love to see him play Grand Moff.
It's more interesting to do that.
It is.
They did it with Obi-Wan. They gave you an McGregor.
It's always going to be more fun to me to have an actor, flesh and blood,
I'm sorry,
on
screen. You're not going to recast.
You're right. Like we're literally watching a whole series that's been recast, and nobody's mad because we're like, he's younger. That makes perfect sense.
And Leia's not being played by Carrie Fisher. De-aged.
I'm certain that Disney's going to hear this and take the notes. I feel confident.
I hope Kathleen Kennedy listens.
No, I mean, recast Luke and Leia and let's go and let's tell their story.
We love little Leia. We're ready for middle Leia.
We didn't get to Star Trek, but let's do all 5 Star Trek next time. So we great. This has been great, Lon.
We can't mix the stars.
No, it's a lot. Cross the
star streams.
Well,
that's bad.
The only thing I'll say to preview our discussion about Star Trek is I thought it was like particularly weird in science fiction to have this racist weirdness happening when you have Uhura is the subject of episode 2 of the new Star Trek series, which is Star Trek
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. And I'm 2 in, you guys are 5 in. It's for me, I'm kind of digging it, but I'm excited to hear that you guys think it gets better. But we're literally talking about Uhura was a groundbreaking moment for television and for science fiction in 1960.
Yeah, but nerds have the memory of there's no cultural
and we're
memory
here 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s.
Well, you saw it. There were people.
20s.
There were people
Racism never
complaining that
dies, my
Strange New
friend.
Worlds is too woke. Didn't you see
Yep.
that? There have been
Oh,
people
yeah.
like, why
What's
is
woke
Star
about
Trek woke
Oh, yeah.
now? Because
But wait,
it's
Star Trek
It's
was the
always
ultimate.
been.
That's been
It's
the
always
idea
been.
is that they've always
Exactly.
been
The whole
society. They've been
concept.
ahead of society, and he's used.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that at this point, if you're not
Science
just straight up
fiction?
Darth Vader, then you're woke.
Well,
Exactly, yes.
Like that. I'm sorry. That's what it's like, right?
The
like
term
I'm just
has
like,
become a
oh, I'm
catch-all
sorry.
to mean
Do you
anything
mean
that I don't
so
somebody-
we
like.
should cast a
Yeah.
person for James Bond who's not English.
It's
and
not casting. They would
mad.
even be mad about the story then. Like it's like you can't. There's no appeasing.
I would be cool with a series on Amazon because we're talking about the streaming wars here.
Mhm.
And now Bezos bought MGM, which owns James Bond.
But it's a little hairy. You got to make deals with the broccolis on the side.
Yeah, that's
they
not
don't just own it outright.
That's
but
not
Got
a
it.
simple.
They're splitting it with Eon Productions.
Got it. I would be totally cool with anybody having the 007 moniker.
Did you see No Time to Die?
Yes.
Lashana Lynch, 007
Yes.
worked great. It's
Yeah.
totally
I mean,
believable.
but 007 was still in it, so it wasn't like.
Right.
I'm saying if they wanted to do another 007 movie with her, do it.
I'm okay with it.
Works for me.
Who's not okay with it? It's like interesting. It's interesting to try different things.
Racists and misogynists.
I'm
racist
also okay
misogynists.
with it being an
Turns out it's
English
a thing.
dude again. I'm fine with that too. I mean, I guess Ian Fleming's books, if they're based on his books, it's based on that character. But you can't be. It's acting, folks. You can have different characters. Also,
And
it's fiction.
They are
Fiction
already so different. Have you ever read a Bond novel? They're great. I really like them. The movies are already extremely different. Like the early Connery ones are closer, but still not. Still, it always was. The movies have always been campier and a little sillier. The books have always tried to be more gritty, and so it's already different. You
can do different things. It just got to be high quality. I think that's the bottom line.
I agree.
Pick good actors, big story writers, and that's why Obi-Wan works. And that's why the
sexist will still be mad no matter how good the actors are.
We just need to ignore them. Like, who cares? Yeah,
exactly.
Just ignore them. They're not relevant.
Don't react, right? Like, don't change your stories for the worst people in the world.
Right. And the idea that you would be able to come up with a middle ground that would appease them. Like, we're going to make a diverse show that's inclusive, but we're not going to offend. It's not possible. You can't.
And what percentage of people is this anyway? Like, what is the overlay of Star Wars fans to raise us at 1%?
They're just really good at internet. If we have seen
that's what it is. They're so good at Reddit and Twitter. They're such mega trolls.
They know how to make themselves appear very big and loud but when you get down to the numbers, we saw this. Oh boy, people are going to be mad at me for saying this. We saw this with the Snyder Cut stuff.
Yes,
where the noise behind that campaign was so loud, it was deafening. It was everybody. Warner Brothers couldn't tweet without a flood of responses that were just demanding the Snyder Cut. And then it came out, and it's not even among the 5 most viewed movie debuts of that year on HBO Max. That group was not potent enough to make these movies $1 billion box office. It just felt that way because they were so
on
noisy.
Twitter. It's a Twitter phenomenon. It's a Twitter / Reddit phenomenon. They probably have a bunch of bot accounts. It's probably it's probably two dudes. It's probably two dudes with 8,000 accounts, and they've just created their own bot army.
100%.
Yes.
It's like literally two dudes got the Snyder Cut delivered.
And like in both not to belabor this forever, but in both politics and entertainment, nobody has figured out yet that this is a playbook. It is a strategy. It's basically a PR campaign called brigading.
Yes.
And
it's brigading.
Be smarter. Like, be smarter.
Get the science fiction that 3 dudes want in their mom's basement eating fish sticks.
I mean, a lot of it too is a business at this point too. We've seen. I mean, we also saw this. I don't want to get into this as a topic, but we also saw this with the Depp Heard trial. That a lot of people just rode it to views because it's so clickable.
Here we go.
Like making videos, making content about it every day is a great way to get a lot of eyes on you, whether or not you have a good faith thing to say about it.
Yep.
It literally, I saw there's this, whatever the Law and Order channel is on YouTube that I guess was the main feed of this. Just once you click on one, now YouTube's like, yeah, you got to see this forever.
They're like, check this out forever.
It had tens of the verdict. I don't know if it had 30 or 40 million views. It was like a modern day OJ thing.
Yeah.
But it was a streaming moment. If you think about it, true crime and jury trials from OJ and everything on is a big business. So this was a specific moment for. This is the channel. Yeah. What is it called?
Yeah.
Law and
3
Order.
million
Law and
subscribers.
Crime.
Law and Crime
Network.
Like, who is Law and Crime Network that stole the Law and Order logo?
Some very clever folks who now are millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
How many views is that? I can't see from here, but
30 million views.
30
So
million
then
views.
like scroll down to like 4 months ago on this channel and let's look at what their views were.
Well, if you go to videos and you just, but it's incredible. Like, this channel has just gone bonkers.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the new CNN, or what was the law channel that broke out in OJ? I know CNN benefited from it. Wasn't there a legal channel? Law TV or something?
There was. There was
Law
TV.
TV.
Court TV.
Thank you.
Court
Took us a minute to get there. So this is like the modern day Court TV.
It is.
Right.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking about, imagine if Twitter and TikTok and Instagram had been around during the OJ. Like, imagine how crazy that would have been.
Yeah.
Because that went on for a year. That was not like, this was, 8 weeks of.
And it was kind of like this too. Like, it had every aspect of society, right? It had celebrity, it had racism.
Race, yes. It was a police thing.
It was a police thing.
Murder,
and this had all of that too, because this was all about a Me Too thing.
And abuse. It touches on so many of these things. That there's so
many
people.
It hits all the horrible things in society.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Celebrities, domestic violence.
Anyway, I just brought that up to be like, a lot of it is more cynical than I think. I think we tend to talk about these topics like everybody's a true
really
believer.
Care. Right.
And like, no, a lot of these people are just blatant frauds. They just want
grifters.
the views and the money. Exactly. It's purely
that is a big part of it. Yeah. I mean, if you can get your meme game on, or you get your clip game on, you can just ride it. I know because I do TikTok every couple of days to just, remind myself how horrible humanity is. And like, it just, they're torturing and they're making characters out of each of the people in Johnny Depp trial. Like, the one attractive attorney on Depp's side is like, she's dating, they're like speculating she's like dating and in a relationship with Johnny Depp. It's like, or she's a great attorney who happens
the whole thing
to be moderately attractive or something.
God,
and
gross.
Like, they're just making everybody into characters.
Immediately.
Yeah. Like, this is horrible.
Yeah. It's American celebrity culture, I think. Wait
do you see
the worst?
England? What do you see the UK?
Right.
Have you opened the Daily Mail?
You're right. It's not we're like the second we want to be the worst.
We're trying hard.
We're trying hard. We're trying hard
to the sun.
Okay, now we're just bumming ourselves out about.
I don't know. The verdict was also interesting. Like, that
it's going to be appealed.
That he won. Of course, everything gets appealed, but
both won.
She won like a tiny thing about her attorney.
I saw one lawyer talking about it where it's definitely going to be appealed because it's sort of contradictory. It's like, well, how could they both have defamed the other? It sort of has to be.
Well, it was the attorney defamed Amber Heard because he
said
it was
like
a hoax,
they both like it, how anyway. I don't
what is possible, I guess, for two people to defame each other in a fight.
Normally, it would be possible for two people to defame each other, but her defamation was based on lying, and it's like, well, how could he have been? I don't know. I'm saying
the whole thing is very the whole thing was very weird.
The whole thing is very weird, and we don't need to get it.
It's called gross. Yeah,
but we will talk about Star Trek next week because it is ultimately
I
a lot more.
Get the first 5 or 6 episodes on your. It'll probably be 6 at that time. So try to get all 6.
Yes, well, by then the 6 will have debuted at midnight the night before. So
perfect. Binge.
Thank you, Lon.
See you then.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Bye.
All right. So we have to do the beginning of the show. Lon will upload and maybe just a quick.
We'll just speed on past it because like it happened.
We just So what order is the show going to go right now, Justin? We're going to do this the interview we did will be for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Lon will be today.
Yeah.
We have on the end of the show tomorrow we'll have
Okay Boomer, which we've done.
Okay.
Yep.
And then today we will open with Sheryl Sandberg and then go on to Lon. So we'll just do that. And then so we need an opening and then we need to just talk about Sheryl Sandberg. So our first and we're going to just cover
I think we can ad lib the opening.
We'll do that in a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I think we could just do it all of a piece, right? Open.
Okay, go straight into it. Yeah.
And Sheryl, and then toss to our own interview. Why not?
Toss to Lon.
Toss to Lon, yeah.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2. Hey, everybody. It's Thursday, and tonight Molly and I will be going to the Warriors game.
Yay!
Pretty good seats. So if you are looking at the Warriors bench, look just to the right, and we might have pretty good seats tonight for game 1. Go Dubs. But a big show today. What do we got on deck for today, Molly?
Big show today. We're going to start with just a little bit of a news update that broke after we stopped recording yesterday, which I hate it when that happens, but it allows us to have a slightly more nuanced conversation about Sheryl Sandberg leaving Meta after 14 years.
And then we're going to go on to talk to our friend Lon Harris. It is This Week in Streaming Thursdays. And so we are going to go all in on Obi-Wan Kenobi and the first 3 episodes. Lots of spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to want to save this episode until you catch up. And episode 3 is a doozy. We'll also talk about maybe the racism issue in the Star Wars community. Is it representative of something bigger? And then what happened in the sequels and in this show? It's a complicated discussion, but a good one. And we'll also touch on the Court TV streaming success of, or this is the crazy numbers for the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, which is thankfully over. It's going to be a great show.
What is happening in society? Stick with us.
It's going to be a great show with some dystopian moments.
Stick with us.
Stick with us. Yes. I'm going to say stick with us. Yes.
Stick with us.
I'm going to say stick with us for sure.
Okay. All right. But before we get to Lon, let's talk about the breaking news that occurred yesterday. It was funny too, because there was a Bloomberg article that was like, well, this is like 11 years in the making, but it finally happened. Meta Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg, she, the architect of the business model and all of the good and ill that brought, is leaving the company in the fall after a full 14 years there. She joined, of course, in 2008, built out the ad business, wrote the book Lean In, became the face of things like the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Facebook's handling of election interference and misinformation. Apparently, recently there was a story that said that she allegedly manipulated the Daily Mail not to post a story about her former boyfriend. A complicated, to say the least, legacy, not only at this company, but in this country.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, huge she,
deal.
And I'm was very close friends of her of her husband who passed away, Dave Goldberg, and I am friendly with Sheryl. So just as a slight disclaimer here, and in fact, I texted her last night and just said, congratulations on a 14-year run. We're friendly and we're friends. And your husband was a dear friend of mine. So, it's complicated. Facebook, I've been super critical of for many years. And Sheryl is an extraordinary executive who helped build Google's ad business and then built Facebook's. And those are the number 1 and the number 2. So in the column of, competency, and perhaps, one of the greatest executives in the modern history of Silicon Valley, Sheryl Sandberg's on the short list. If you were to look at COOs and people in operations, not founders, but people who helped founders build companies, she's in the top 2 or 3. Along with people like a Tim Cook or a Sundar. There are people who are the people behind the founders who actually build these businesses, and she is a legendary one, and obviously had a lot of influence on culture and women in business and leaning in. Those are all the great things, but Facebook also had a lot of challenging things, and its ability to really handle disinformation, election fraud, all of these things was clearly suboptimal and bad. And I think Zuckerberg's decision-making is horrible, and he made decisions to grow the business. And I thought maybe she should have left, as you were referring to in the Bloomberg one, 7 years ago. She also had to be the face of this because, let's face it, Zuckerberg's a horrible communicator. So for many years, she had to go out and take the arrows for decisions Zuck made. And I think people kind of recognize that as well. So I wish her well in her philanthropy and everything else, in her life. Yeah.
Think that it says about the future of this company? Because we've speculated on this show that maybe Zuckerberg would become executive chairman, or that he would spin out Meta into sort of its own thing, and maybe, give Sheryl the CEO title at Facebook, much like Google
That was my
did with
idea, yeah.
Susan Wojcicki at YouTube. Yeah. And so this to me just feels like, I mean, look, if you're a multi-billionaire and you've put your time in and you've taken a lot of arrows and like you just want to live your life and live it well and do philanthropy and do whatever else, great, right? You should totally do that. But also when you're dealing with ambitious people, you do wonder if there was a job that she wasn't going to be given.
Well, that's what happened at Google. So I have no idea what's happening here. I have no inside information. I don't talk to Zuck. I rarely talk to Cheryl, but we're friendly. So I don't have any inside information in this case. I'm always very honest with that with the audience. So, but she should have become a board member at Google. She should have been president maybe or CEO candidate. And I think that's probably why she left there. You know, sometimes you have to leave a company to get recognized for your unique talent. You might have experienced that yourself, Molly. I don't think it's even a gender-based thing, but it might be more acute for women. I don't know. But a lot of times talent has to leave a place because there's no more slots ahead of them, right? There's a backlog, right? And so the easiest way to move up the ladder is to go jump onto another ladder and go one rung up. And I think that's what she did at Facebook, right? She became the number 2, where at Google, you know, it was a little bit of a Game of Thrones there for a bit. Marissa Mayer, Solar, there were a lot of different people, you know, Susan Wojcicki, who were in the running for different departments. And, you know, I guess that causes some air traffic control in the executive ranks. So, yeah, I think it clearly shows that Zuckerberg wants to run this.
Yeah.
I think Zuckerberg probably feels with the pullback in the stock, with everybody hating on him, with, you know, the scrutiny they're under, that maybe he needs to just rule with an iron fist and be in charge. And, you know, for society writ large, I think it's probably a loss because I have a feeling she was the rudder that was probably protecting Zuckerberg from bad decisions. So as much as people would be critical of her, I actually think the story might be, if she wasn't there, this thing would have been 10 times worse, and the bad behavior would have been worse, and, you know, policing the system would have been worse. She's a good actor, I believe, knowing her, and always tried to do the right thing. I think she didn't have the power and the final decision to do the right thing. That falls on Zuck, who is the God King, who not only controls whatever decision making, you know, Cheryl wanted to make, he controls the board. So he answers to no one. And so,
and he, by every single whistleblower account, by every internal account, by every, like, you know, named employee account, made all of the decisions around, right? Prioritize the engagement no matter what. Like, yes, targeted advertising, the business model that she built, it got to become an out of control monster, right? It violates people's privacy. It like incentivizes terrible behavior. It like distorts reality. There are all of these things that are issues when you build targeted advertising at scale that don't have anything to do with morality specifically. That's like an organism that grows out of control becomes dangerous. What we hear over and over and over is that the decision making that caused so much of this harm and exacerbated that harm came from Mark.
Yeah.
And he is now now he's booting generals and consolidating all the power. And so like, don't buy that fucking metaverse.
Yeah.
Don't do
it. There's definitely some, I would be very concerned, you know, if you care about society and the impact social media has on society, I think losing Cheryl is, a big loss. Yeah. If you care about the stock price and you want to have a marauding capitalist, I think, you know, this means that maybe he will become more freewheeling and, So, I mean, listen, it's another situation where somebody in our comments is saying, you know, he gets all the credit and.
Well, she's getting all the credit and zero blame. And I think that's.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think she gets some blame for being.
I think she should get some blame for this.
I mean, she was there.
She was there. Like, there's no, you know, if you want to quit and protest and become the whistleblower, you can totally do that. And that did not happen. So I think like I maintain what I said at the top of the segment, which is it's always going to be, I think, a complicated legacy for sure.
Of course, if she had left before the elections, you know, that would have been better. And I think she would have been amazing as a politician. I think she would have run for president eventually. I think she would have been Secretary of State or something like that. If Hillary had won, I think I could see her leaving her post earlier and then, being in the government. She started in government, is my understanding. And so, and now you have to wonder, is it too hard now for her to go into politics? Because my God, Facebook was such a disaster at times. And so
there's a stink.
Yeah, I think that could, but I mean, maybe better ultimately, because a life in politics sounds pretty brutal.
Also terrible.
Also terrible.
Well, on that note, now that Darth Vader has completely cemented his control of Meta, let's talk about Star Wars, shall we?
Yes. Yeah. Here we go. This week in streaming with Lon Harris up next.
Wonderful. Right. And just in case you don't feel like there's a breaking news story tomorrow, I guess we could record.
How many minutes do you have tomorrow?
We did 40 plus minutes with Tarek. Plus,
and then you
could be. Although we have to record BC Sunday School tomorrow, no matter what. So
So let's just plan on the 10 a.m. slot, and then we'll probably do one story, and then just talk about the Warriors game, and then call it a day.
Wonderful.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool,
Thanks,
cool,
everybody.
cool.
Upload your video. Upload your audio, please. Yes, 2 hours of show.
Thank you, Noties, for tuning in. And
I know Surge Dog showed up and was like, "What the hell? We're still live."
Insanity in the chat. I'm not really sure. It's
as you regularly do this, you're just going to get bots. This is much less than I see other channels dealing with. Just so people can benchmark. Yeah, basically, when your channel gets discovered, there's a bunch of bot armies that will try to sell stuff and get people to join other things. And it's very simple. You just hit that triple button, you ban them for life. One strike, you're out at the end.
Yeah,
and just you got to rule with an iron fist.
Because
these are automated bots.
Words to the block list too.
Oh, good.
But it's everybody just trying to sell sex websites.
It's all porn. It's so
which is so ridiculous.
Happening in the YouTube. It was happening in the Twitter group too. Yeah.
I love watching our chat be like, "This is not the right target audience for this, you guys. Like, you've really misestimated."
Yeah. Surge Dog. It's annoying, but it's a sign the channel's growing. All right, thank you. We're ending the stream.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.